Philippians 2:19-30 is a brief and personal side note of the larger letter. Paul stops his theological conversation to tell the church in Philippi he's sending two of his best and dearest workers, Timothy and Epaphroditus. It's a rare insight to the interpersonal relationships Paul has and how they shaped his ministry. He calls Timothy his son, and he says that God spared Epaphroditus from some terminal illness just to keep Paul going in his ministry so he wouldn't be overcome with sorrow. He is sending these people to continue gospel work in their community, so welcome them as you have welcomed Paul himself. So what are we to make of this? And how does this little section inform us today? Two thoughts. First, I think it's about the necessity and importance of serving the Lord with friends who encourage you and spur you on. Many people in church don't get involved or integrated because, for whatever reason, they haven't made a connection with someone else who inspires them to be more like Jesus. Without a person like that, it's hard to be motivated to serve, let alone to show up at a church service or event. So who are those people who inspire you? How can you thank them today and encourage them today? Or if you don't have someone like that, how can you be proactive in seeking out a friend in the gospel who can help and spur you on, like a Timothy and Epaphroditus? Secondly, this passage is about the importance of gospel work in other spaces. There are incredible stories of people around the world who are, like Epaphroditus, giving their all for Jesus. We need to have a global perspective on what God is doing in the world, not just be overly focused on our own faith journey or just the things happening in our own church. So how can we do that? Simple. Get online. Go to places like Open Doors or Operation World, or maybe just do something simple like send an email to our link missionaries and see what they're up to. Or when you can, get out. Go on mission yourself. There's lots of opportunities to do that. When we are able to have a global perspective and see what God is doing through others around the world, it fires us up in our own faith. If you'd like help in doing either of those things, please let us know. Let's keep going, guys. Paul says this about seeing the church seeing Epaphroditus again, and this is my prayer for all of us when we see each other face to face. He says, when you see him, you will be glad. I hope that's what we can say about one another, because we've continued to spur one another on during this time, and that we have continued to engage with what God is doing in the world. Not just be overcome by the things happening in the world, but see what God is doing in the middle of all of this stuff, and encourage one another. When we can do those things, to have those friends and spur one another on, and to have a global perspective to see what God is doing, we will be glad when we see each other too. Amen.